All right, who didn't get this survey form? Just put up your hand and we'll get our magician to pass it to you. My lovely lady. Oh, she's coming there. Wait. She needs a survey form. Could we walkie the magicians to bring one survey form? 2, 3. 3 survey forms. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, keep the hands in the air. Wave it around like you just don't care. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Row number 5. Remember to compile all the survey forms together, and we would really appreciate honest opinions, and so we could actually serve you better in our future events and ideas and so on. So yeah, if you don't like the MC, you may say so in the survey form. It's up to you. You see? That's how powerful your eyes are. Where have you been? We've been waiting for you. Yeah, there you go. We're Facebook Live? No? Oh. Thank you, sir. All right, good afternoon and welcome to a Magic Academy Symposium 2017. This is our afternoon session right here, and it's going to be a good one for those who joined us earlier on, and you know what I'm talking about, the survey forms, which is very, very important, and you should be actually having the 4th survey form right now, and make sure to compile all your survey forms in order to win some great lucky draw prizes like the PS4 and the Time Traveler's Watch, etc., etc. And other than that, we are going on Facebook Live, so if you want to ask any questions with the speakers, you may do so through FB Live. And also, if you want to take any pictures and so on, want to post it on social media, it's hashtag MA2017. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this one's going to be on actually the Engage, Innovate. That is the title of this talk. And it's a keynote speaker. He's very handsome, good looking. I just had a chat with him just now. He's the co-founder and CEO of Engage, Innovate, and X2 Inc. He's a strategy and innovation advisor on how to face disruption, design new businesses, models, and succeed at strategic transformation to management teams and companies around the world. He also teaches a series of executive programs on corporate innovation, digital disruption, and digital business model transformation. He is the lead designer behind 3 levels of business models: strategic innovation canvas, innovation pyramid, which all are the part of strategy tools. He is a keynote speaker at a number of global innovation events, including Front End of Innovation, PwC Academy, Innovation Roundtable, and World Innovation Convention. He is an active angel investor with investments in energy, technology, fish farming, digital platforms, EV charging, space, Mars settlement, IoT, and more. His portfolio includes 20-plus yearly stage startups. He's also a serial entrepreneur. I was about to say serial killer, but entrepreneur. Having launched and scaled a number of startups recently, he has worked extensively on accelerating national transformation, building new accelerator programs, piloting new ways of building startups around the industries for the future. He is always happy to hear people pitch and talk about problems of strategic growth challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and let's welcome Christian Rangen.
Thank you. Well, that was quite an introduction. Problem was he also took most of my good points, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to tell you next. Are you enjoying yourself? Good. Quick show of hands. How many of you are currently entrepreneurs at the moment? Starting, building, scaling your own company? All right. How many of you are in a corporate job? So Petronas, T&B, large companies. All right. How many of you are investors, actively looking to invest in new companies? Oh, we need the balance, you know. Half the room should have been the investors, but that's okay. How many here are government? Good. So you're the one with the really, really big paychecks. We'll be speaking more. So, is Malaysia ready for the future? That was the topic I was invited to speak on. And what I really want to talk to you about and discuss with you is how entrepreneurship can help accelerate national transformation. It requires the entrepreneurs, it requires the corporates, it requires early investors, and it requires at least one person from government. Because we can have just as much and just as important entrepreneurship in government as we can in early startups. How many here would like to apply for a job in disruptive government practices? See? You know, there's plenty of taste here. All right, so cool. First of all, I would like to congratulate all of you for being here today. You could, and maybe also you should be out acquiring customers. So I hope you're pitching and stealing customers from each other, because that's really what startups all about. But I want to congratulate Malaysia for the work that you've been doing on the National Blue Ocean Strategy. So if any of you have been involved actively, passively, directly, indirectly, good job. If you have had time to read, I hope that you've had a chance to look at the Blue Ocean Shift. It's a book that came out about a week ago, and it's really good, especially at the end where magic is heavily featured. So any of you within magic that's been helping put magic on this map, congratulations. All right, so let me introduce myself. I'm going to take a selfie with you guys. Can we make that happen? Yeah. All right. Cool. It's a super wide angle lens, so I got you and I got you as well. I'll put it on Twitter afterwards. Now, I'll promise you this. Any questions, comments, pitches that you might have, you can post it to me on Twitter. You can post it to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, by email, or if you can grab me in the hall, and I'll answer every single one of them. Because it's important for me when I come down here to have conversations with you in here or afterwards. So these are my Twitter accounts. You can get me anywhere. So as many of you know, Norway, which I'm from, is a really good country for surfing. And when you go there to surf, sometimes you can even catch a little bit of snow. So this is a picture of our local surf spot in the good surf season. And you can also go in the afternoon session. It's a little bit dark, you don't see the sharks. It's more adventurous. Or you can come and break a leg in some of the black pist. Of course, what Norway is really famous for is the fjords. And you can go sightseeing in so many ways. There's a lot of people that come to visit Norway, and they jump off a mountain, and sometimes they survive. But really, next time you plan to go visit the innovation ecosystem, of course you can go to San Francisco or Berlin or Shenzhen, or you can come and do this. We do not have the Parentian Islands, but we do have one tropical island with one palm tree that we're trying to keep alive. And interestingly enough, the owner of this island is also the most active business angel in Norway. And you can find these kind of strange connections everywhere if you're just looking. And strange connections we see. I just left a country called Romania, where I was giving a keynote on digital disruption driven by innovation. And what they said was that entrepreneurship in Romania is all about a war. This is not a friendly startup ecosystem. This is really about, it's a war. It's a war for funding, it's a war for technology, it's a war for talent, and it's a war for business model innovation. So my colleague Jolene and I, and a few of other of our colleagues, we're very fortunate that we get to travel many places and work with innovation across large companies, across government, across academic, and startups. And I'll try to share some of my experiences, both on a personal level, but also increasingly towards that national government level. And I'll try to showcase, potentially, how this can be relevant to some of you in the entrepreneurship field, whether you're in government, corporate, investment, or as a startup. Does that sound good? All right. This is a big question. Big question for everyone in here. I do not believe entrepreneurship should be about, my company and my 5 employees and my scaling and my exit. What we need to do, what you guys need to do, is be able to connect what we're doing on a startup level to a national level. I think nation building is a big word, but I think it's a suitable word for why entrepreneurship is increasingly important. So I'll share some of my reflection around my own journey. Mostly good, some terrible mistakes. What we see as sort of happening across the innovation landscape in Malaysia, and at the end, the national transformation towards 2050. So that's me. One of my day jobs is angel investment. I do not get enough pitches. I do not get enough deal flow, and no one has stopped me outside this auditorium to pitch. Try it. I usually say yes to some really strange things. 5 years ago, some people approached me and said, Chris, we're on a mission to reinvent power. And I said, that's so cool, I'm in. And I had no idea what they meant. I had no idea. It just sounded really cool. So I meet the founding team. I walk into their lab and I say, okay, I've invested a little bit of money. So what do you do? And they were all about technology. It's like, we're building the world's smallest miniaturized electronic device that nobody understands. I'm like, okay. I'm not an engineer. I have no idea what that means. All right. How are you going to sell it? And the guy who's pitching this waits for a minute and says, oh, don't worry about it. As soon as we finish the product, we're going to put it online, and it's going to sell itself. Ever heard this before? 5 years later, we're still trying to find a business model that works. 5 years. The technology works, the engineering works, the product works. The minor glitch. How are we going to sell this? We've been working through roughly 40 different business models, and I think that we found one that actually works. In trying to reinvent power. Then about a year and a half ago, a few guys approached me and said, Chris, we like living in Norway, which of course is dark most of the year, has more than enough clean energy, and has less than 5 million people. So naturally, we want to build a solar energy startup in Norway for Norway. So I said, yes, of course, I'm in. Wonderful. What do we do? Today we're building a national cluster of solar energy in Norway. It's dark, it has 5 million people, which is what, half the size of KL? And it has more than enough clean energy. We now have a cluster of about 30 solar energy startups, pushing each other, motivating each other, competing and making each other better. These guys have recently closed their third round of financing. They're now scaling across the Nordics and into parts of Europe. How many solar energy companies, solar energy startups do we have in Malaysia so far? I am actively looking. Any of you? Let's have a conversation. And then about 2 years ago, I met a guy who says, Chris, we're going to make Mars settlement happen. Permanent human settlement on Mars. So, what do you think I said? Yes, of course, wonderful, I'm in. And only later did I ask, okay, so how are you going to make this happen? And he presented the most impressive business model that I've ever seen. I'm not going to share all of it with you. But basically, what he had was what we call an incredibly audacious goal, permanent human settlement on Mars. But the business model around it was something completely different. It had nothing to do with actually going into space. It was all about stuff that was happening on the ground and in what we call adjacent areas. So when you guys pitch for business models, please don't focus too heavily on the technology, but come up with relevant and intelligent business models. And you'll have a much, much higher chance of succeeding, even though the ideas might sound a little bit crazy. So, of course, my question is, how many in here are working on permanent human settlement on Mars? I currently have roughly 25 startups in the angel portfolio. Some of them are going to die. Some of them are going to get closed down. Some of them will transition into something else. Some of them will become cockroaches, meaning startups that never die. And some of them will hopefully be successful. My statistics is roughly 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 is going to turn into something. And this is important because when you're pitching and presenting, of course, you want to attract funding. You also need to know realistically, which is a terrible word, what are the chances of actually making this? I'm also, this slide is in Norwegian by design, I'm also involved in now raising a new fund. It's not operational yet, but we're hoping to build a fund that would give us bigger muscles in terms of investing in really crazy stuff, both in the Nordics and elsewhere. So if you're looking for funding, let's have a conversation. Now, I've sort of walked this path before, and I've done a few things that's been good, but my most expensive learning was of the scale of roughly 120 million ringgit. How do you think that went? Good, medium, or really, really bad? Really, really bad. Fortunately, I was just an employee. I was still in school. And the company we were building was developing speech technology. This was like 17 years ago. And we spent 120 million ringgit, and we forgot one minor thing. Customers. We had 150 people, mostly engineers, and we had one person on the marketing and sales side. He was a really friendly guy, though, but didn't help him very much. Right now, I'm building a few companies. So the first one is a consulting company called Engage Innovate. And we help clients think beyond tomorrow. So we work with large companies, small companies, to really see what are the next couple of business models, what are the next innovation practices that we should be focusing on. Now, probably, and my mother tells me this, why don't you focus on doing one job, which would probably be this, but I told her that that's a little bit too boring. So I'm also building a national transformation accelerator, and over the last year and a half, we've been doing about 15 to 20 different accelerator activities or accelerator programs. We have done accelerator programs on solar energy, electric vehicles, smart city, fish farming, smart buildings, smart city, drones, and digital health. Incredibly interesting, incredibly challenging, And it gives us, we like to call it, a taste of the future. And I like to use this photo as also a taste of the future. Does anybody want to guess what this is? It's a minor startup trying to establish a global network of space-based solar satellites. So imagine this, 60 satellites in space with huge solar panels, catching energy and beaming it back to Earth. So we thought, how hard can it be? Now, the roadmap to get there requires industrial operation on the moon. It requires us to build gas stations in space. And it requires us to be able to, ideally, 3D print solar panels in space. What do you think? Is this doable? Is it realistic? Or is it simply a matter of time? Or is it simply a matter of time? And of course, anyone in here who watches Star Trek and Star Wars knows it's simply a matter of time. So I started working on this about 2.5 years ago. It was a project between an American company, a few nation states, and then a few random people in Norway. So a project like this requires a few $100 million US just to get started. So you need to, the seed round is a few $100 million US. So where do you go to get that kind of money? The government, right? So we worked with the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We worked with the Norwegian Ministry of Industry and Trade. And we worked directly with the Prime Minister's office. Now, there's something about innovation that kind of repeats itself. So what do you think was the repeat message that we kept getting from the various government ministries and the Prime Minister's office? No is correct. They used more words. They used words like, we don't think this is realistic, which is a really bad excuse. We don't think this is financially sustainable. And we don't think this is the right time for us right now, which sort of sums up to no. So these guys got it instead. Anybody here been to Luxembourg? Luxembourg is like the tiniest country in the world. There's like 5 people in it. And they have really ambitious political leadership. Worked with them for about 1.5 years, and they stole, meaning they were just faster in taking all these ideas. So this picture is the Deputy Prime Minister of Luxembourg, where he's meeting with Chris Lewicki, who's the CEO of Planetary Resources, just after Luxembourg announced the world's first space mining investment fund to attract international companies into Luxembourg. So how many in here are currently working on space mining startups? Because the funding is available. You just got to go to Luxembourg. So I'm a little bit annoyed that Luxembourg got that and the Norwegians didn't. Also, I've done a little bit of strategy advising, and it's really hard. How would you describe kind of the mode, the mojo, the mood on this photo? This is corporate innovation. It's hard. It also happens to be a photo from Malaysia from last year. We were working with a company here. And this is kind of where they realized that, oh my God, the world that we are in is changing so fast that if we don't do something significantly different, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So they all went like, oh man. But kudos, they are working. They're really, really, really trying. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the corporate innovation field. And this is a colleague of mine. Earlier this year, we were on a business trip in California. This is the first time she sits in a Google car. You can't really see it, but she sits in and she's like, where my hands go? There's no steering wheel. Of course there's not. This is a self-driving car. And we're now trying to bring that back into some of the corporate projects that we do. And I also get to teach some of this in business schools in various places, trying to combine different experiences into an educational program. That's really boring. So how is innovation going in Malaysia? That's a big question. And for the last almost year and a half, my team and I have been invited to sort of explore that topic. We don't have all the answers, but what we see from working with Magic, working with some corporates, working with the startups that we meet here, is there's probably never ever been a better time for innovation, for entrepreneurs, for investment, and for government-led change. But there's going to be a lot of work, and I think that you have a lot of catching up to do, which you probably know, but that's okay. That's a fair starting point. Are you happy with this? Global Entrepreneurship Ranking currently, probably really unfairly, puts Malaysia at 54th place. Between Brunei and South Africa. But you know, Uruguay, Barbados, Botswana, I have no idea what you guys are doing. But if these statistics are actual, you need to start bribing people to get up the list, because you cannot be happy with 54th place. But things are happening, things are changing. And Malaysia is being recognized as a digital innovator, along with the Baltics and Iceland. There's a really great group of friends. But I think that we need to find many ways to accelerate innovation in Malaysia. It's going to require a lot of people, time, energy, investments, startups and blow-ups and failures and screw-ups, but we need a lot, and we need faster. I'm going to show you a few statistics. Some of you might be familiar with this, but this is not, it's not happy reading. So which country do we have on top here? These are investments between 2012 and 2017 in Southeast Asia. I'm not sure if I can say it out loud, but it's a company just south of the border. Then we have Indonesia. And then I have no idea what you guys have been doing, but bump. It doesn't get any better. Bump. How, you're familiar with lean startup. It's like, how lean investment can we get? Now, interestingly, this one is different. These are the number of deals. So this is the total value. This is the number of deals. Now, this statistics tells us that in pure number of deals, you're not doing too bad. But it's the size of the deals, it's the amount that's being pitched, it's the amount that's being invested that are too small. And maybe they're big by national standards, but by competing globally, they're not big enough. So I'm going to look at the four of you that said you're investors. You need to cough up much more money. You know, it's as simple as that and also as difficult as that, because the size of the investment deals need to get bigger to compete globally. And also this. How many unicorns do we have currently located in Malaysia? I was studying this math for about an hour. Trying, you know, maybe this is a Malaysian company. It just happened to be placed in the wrong, no, it wasn't, no. 0. I know you had one, you gave it away. That's very friendly of you. We had a discussion with some investors yesterday, and we suggested maybe that's just an excuse so you can do a military invasion of Singapore and then just take the whole country back. I don't know. This needs to change. A country your size, with the ambitions that you have, this needs to change. We need to be building not only many small startups, but be able to scale them to unicorns faster. We see a lot of activity happening. and I'm sort of following the early stage investment scene. I see a lot of activity happening. And 500 startups, they have been very active. We have other early stage partners coming up. But I believe, and we had some conversations last night, we need to build probably hundreds of business angels, maybe thousands of business angels. We need to build VC funds, we need to import VC funds, and we need to probably take more risk, respectfully, with government funding to help accelerate this ecosystem. How many of you that are currently building a startup already know your exit strategy in terms of selling your company? How many of you strongly know this is the company that's going to buy us? No, don't be shy, show of hands. One maybe. I'm doing a little bit of mentoring this afternoon, and the first question I'm going to ask is, who is going to buy your company? Now, probably you say, I don't want to sell it, that's fine. But by knowing your exit scenario, it puts you on a very different path in terms of investors, valuation, and potentially having the option of exits. And we've started to see a growing number of companies in Southeast Asia being active in terms of acquisition, in buying early stage companies. And ideally, it doesn't matter which industry you're in, you should be connecting with these companies. You should be developing relationships with these companies for the unlikely event that you might be selling your company. Because that's really what we need. We need to build companies, sell companies, reinvest the money in new companies, and accelerate what we call the total ecosystem development. It is not only a government issue, it's very much a private capital issue. All right, let me take you over to some innovation trends that we're seeing globally, but probably also here in Malaysia. So the first trend is this. Innovation is getting bigger. Bigger means larger investments, larger companies, larger acquisitions, and larger funds. Are you guys familiar with the SoftBank Vision Fund? It's still getting built. It's going to be the world's largest VC fund. If you need money, that's definitely should be on your list. It's a VC fund that has been called a beast because of the size and the ambitions. It's probably going to have $100 billion when it's fully capitalized. In Uber alone, they're probably investing $10 billion. Uber alone, $10 billion. And they're investing at valuation for Slack and for WeWork. That's just off the scale. So if you're trying to raise money, you need to email Vision Fund. And they'll probably say no, and that's fine. A second trend that we're seeing in innovation, both for startups and for corporates, is what we call revolutionary business model innovation. How many of you comfortably go to VCs and pitch, we have revolutionary business model innovation in our deck? Or do we have what we call really careful business model tweaking? Meaning, we'll copy what they did and we'll put a pink color on the website. We'll replicate all the best practices in the world and compete on the margins. This is a really cool slide. Really cool slide. This is the German car manufacturer Volkswagen, who recently announced their Transform 2025 strategy. And what they're saying is that, oh my God, our world is about to blow up and we need to hurry up. I'll take you through it very slowly. So in this area, Volkswagen said, product innovation, more cars, better cars, old cars, usual cars. You can have it in gray, you can have it in black, you can have it in green, but it's still going to be the same old car. Then we're going to do product innovation. Our cars are now going to be autonomous, electric, and smart and connected. We'll basically put computers inside the cars. But it's not enough. It's not enough. What Volkswagen is now doing is saying, we need to figure out how do we do revolutionary business model innovation, not as a startup, but as one of the world's largest industrial car manufacturers. So they introduced shared, conventional, and robo-taxis. Volkswagen says, we are actively looking, searching, hunting for anyone that can help us build robot taxis. And we are investing billions of euro into the world's largest digital connected ecosystems for cars and mobility. Anyone working on software, maps, control system, voice recognition, face recognition, location-based services, you should go meet Volkswagen and pitch your company and pitch your services. Maybe as a partner, maybe as an exit. But what's happening now with Volkswagen is that they're trying basically to reinvent the company around digital transformation, driven by the fear of Uber, the fear of Lyft, the fear of Grab. And this is happening on a scale for car manufacturing that we've never seen before. It really is, for a lot of companies, what we call strategic transformation. And the same thing is happening for Ford. In the old days, Ford used to build cars. They would build cars, they would ship it, and they would finance it. And they were very successful. Today, Ford is realizing that our world is changing. They're now launching a strategy of connected, green, and what they call mobility as a service. Now we have Intel. Intel says, we don't care about the car, but we care about this computing device that has wheels on it, and people sit inside it, previously known as a car. And what Intel sees is that every single car is going to give off about 4,000 gigabytes of data every single day. So quick math. How many cars do we have in Malaysia? Roughly. 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 12 million? Let's just say 10 million, give or take, 10 million. You take 10 million cars and you multiply it by 4,000 gigabytes. How much data is produced in a year? We need storage, we need connectivity, we need machine learning, we need services on top. This is going to be a huge digital opportunity for anyone, any kind of way related to the car. But it keeps getting better. I'm impressed by the traffic that you have. It's very safe because it's moving so slow. It's incredible that you don't have flying cars yet. The one company in the world that's currently doing the most work around flying cars is Uber. About a year ago, they published the Uber Elevate strategy, where they basically lay out a roadmap for flying cars will be a natural part of any city in the future. So I'm going to ask you, how many in here are currently working on the flying car? Guys, you're spending your time on the wrong things. It's going to look like this. Uber says, we have to reinvent transportation and mobility. We cannot have more cars because our cities are too congested. We need to be able to fly from A to B with the same user interface, the same smartphone, and it's going to be even cheaper by flying than by the old Uber that had people inside it. It's currently being developed in Dallas, Texas, and Dubai, and I expect a few Asian cities to start piloting this within the next 2 years. I would like KL to be one of those cities. And I invite you to say, we can make this happen. We have government people in the room, we'll just ask them. Or we can go to Shenzhen Airbus and an accelerator called HAX, American but based in China, are currently inviting global startups to come to Shenzhen and build the flying car of the future. It's a hardware meets software play. But what Airbus is saying is, we're not able to innovate fast enough, so we need to open up and invite global startups to join us. So anyone in here are technically capable of applying and going. You might not really know what to do or how to build a flying car, but nobody does. So we'll just try. Because they are actively looking for this. So we're seeing this trend. Large companies are learning to innovate bigger, faster, but they need to do it together with startups like yourself. So how do we do this? And why and how is this relevant to startups? So big companies are usually built around this. There's a few people in here that work with corporates. We have a legacy business model. We need to defend it at all costs. Any innovation that we do is basically just tweaking minor items. Large companies are now learning how to handle both the legacy business and the growth business. Growth business are usually closely connected to the core. They're not really bold bets, but they're new services. For Petronas, growth business might be to expand to Canada, which didn't work out really well, or it might be expand to oil and gas exploration in the Middle East. More of the same. What's really interesting and where corporates meet startups is what we call exploration. In the exploration phase, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of moonshot thinking. There's a lot of business model experiments. There's a lot of accelerator programs. And there's a lot of corporates actively working with, eating with, sleeping with, on the job, of course, brainstorming with, trialing with, mistaking with startups. This is really where corporates and startups meet each other. And if you're a big company today, or if you are a GLC, you need to be able to do all three. You need to have a strategy for the core business. You need to have a different strategy for your growth business. And finally, and really important, you need to have a strategy for your explore business. And I'm going to